Thought I'd change. I'm just gonna get into it. Not gonna do music anymore. It's just too much on my plate at the moment. Need to gobble it up and shit. Just get things done. So yeah, let's move on to the first topic. So it has been a hot minute before or since for any sort of politics, and one of the things I heard recently through Owen Jones was this anti-terrorism thing from the White House. And I just have to say, it's so fucking dystopian, untruthful, it's actually insane. I don't know what they were thinking when they came up with this, because it is literally some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. And that's really saying something, because I've seen dumb shit. But it is literally the dumbest. And essentially what's happening is they seem to be condemning anyone who's sort of like publicly Antifa as being a terrorist organisation, even though it's not an organisation, as Owen Jones has pointed out. It's literally a belief, and even then, as someone like myself does, I tend to find the truth in things. And when I find the truth, it's often important to make sure I've got it right and do the right thing moving forward. And what ends up happening is, it turns out, anti-fascist is the way forward. It is literally the way to progress and to treat humanity better. And that's provable because over the years we've already prescribed to that. We've avoided wars, we've avoided conflict, and we've avoided fascism for so long now that we just know that it's the wrong thing. To have fascism rule everything is obviously going to have detrimental effects on society and health and mental health and everything. To basically give a real life example of what fascism actually looks like, look at Israel. That is literally fascism. They silence the media, they bribe them, they do so many other things to other countries, like they make dealings and stuff, and even then they commit war crimes and commit horrific wars against people who have done literally nothing wrong. And the key word there is people have done nothing wrong, because people will say, oh, it's, well, you're defending Hamas. No, I don't even defend Hamas. Everyone agrees that they're awful. But you're targeting people who have nothing to do with them. So, essentially it's a null and void point. You're doing something for nothing here. You're not even sending the message, whatever it is. So, it's a failure. Again, from the truthful perspective, there is nothing here that can justify the war crimes. Well, I would have understood it if maybe you were targeting Hamas themselves, but you weren't. So you failed your objective. And it took you, what, genociding 80,000 people to figure that out, but you haven't figured it out, so again, what's going on here? Because it's obviously not the truth. It's obviously a different motive entirely. And if you want my honest opinion on what it could be speculation wise, I think it's literally just corrupting humanity. All of this is a practice in getting people on board with the billionaire class and basically getting them to fight for anything, for anyone, no matter what they have to do. Which is why they do this shit. Which is why you hear constant stories about children getting killed and abused, sexually abused, raped by Israel. That's why it happens. They want to desensitize a bunch of people from this and make it so that it's a normal thing. So that people who are easily corruptible, who will take the money and fight for a cause like that, if you can even call it a cause, they will happily take it and show no remorse. This is like the very real danger we're seeing here. That's why I've even mentioned this again. again, these anti-fascist things, these rules about it being a terrorist organisation, it's so ridiculous and laughable that I don't even know if a human actually written it. It was probably AI. It definitely rings sort of alarm bells there, because anyone with an ounce of logic or thought put into this would realise that it isn't often equatable to, well, it isn't equatable to an organisation, full stop, but you can't actually defeat it because history again has taught us that fascism doesn't work out. It doesn't benefit anyone. That's been a consistent thing. So you have to recognise that before anything else. Otherwise we're just fucked. There's no winning. So I don't even know what to say. Like, what is there to even add to this? Because we all know fascism is wrong. Even a lot of people who would seemingly take that side would understand that it's wrong anyway. But we have to seemingly repeat history so that people actually learn the lessons time. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's not fun. Don't know what else I can add here, to be honest. It's tiring. It's such a bullshit thing to have happening these days. There's so much to dislike about it. And again, if there is any actual truth here, I want to hear it. I'm not someone who will just dismiss things because it's like an agenda. I don't have a fucking agenda. I just do what's right. And it's on the objective morality side. So yeah, that's the only agenda, but that's it. And I don't really believe in subjective morality because at a certain point there is literally no such thing. Because everyone's morality is easily debunkable, and that's something I've done over the years which actually deeply proves it. It comes down to the core beliefs, it comes down to these core sort of pieces of evidence and what people take away from it, how they interpret it. And that's what causes the issues. Anyway, I better move on. I'm about to crap myself. Thanks, Crohn's disease. I had another horrific realisation about the computer. And I don't know how I didn't realise this sooner, because I only realised it from doing my PC building simulator things. I also tested a white graphics card, and it actually works sort of better if it has a bit of black on it as well. So it sort of mixes, which is insane. But I do think that, from what I've seen anyway, I think that I can risk getting a GPU like the RX 9070 XT, and in the future, if I don't like it, I can simply replace it with a RTX 5070 Ti. So the reason why I'm considering Nvidia now is because I'm looking into the specs for each card. Like, I'm looking up again. There's an XT and then Nvidia. I said GTX. Like, we're through that era, sadly. I miss GTX. It used to be the good stuff. So it's an official site. It's the 5070, but not the Ti. No, there is Ti. Okay. But where's the specs? Like, exactly? Because this is something that came under my radar. The memory bandwidth, apparently, which I think is a big deal, from what I could tell, because someone pointed out on the RX 9060 XT that the bandwidth on the 9060 is simply too low, meaning it only has 128 gigabytes, whatever this means, and to be honest I don't fully understand it, to be clear, but I think that that's obviously not a good number to have from what I can tell. The memory bandwidth on the 9070 though, however, it's up to 640 gigabytes and 256 bit, and what is the RTX? It doesn't say for some reason. Yeah, I don't know what version it is, so it's hard to say exactly. I don't know why it's not listing it. What does it say? Bit. Can't even control F to bit. That's a bit annoying. So RTX 5070 Ti memory bandwidth bits. Maybe that'll come up. GPU power base on. That's actually useful. Well, it's like, where is it? Bandwidth. Bus width, no. And oh, it says up there. Yeah, 256 bit bus width. So it's about the same. But it's DDR7 memory type, and isn't the RX 9060 GDDR6? Where does it say that? GDDR6, yeah. So it's a different memory type, and that's also a consideration for me. Well, actually, why don't I just go to tech power for this now? RX. What is the comparison thing? Surely they have to have that, right? Is there a way to compare it? I don't think there is. RX 9070, that's right there. Okay. Also, I can just do it side by side. So, different architecture. There's less cores in the 9070, which is very interesting. It's like half as much. And TMUs, there's a bit more in the 5070 Ti. There's a bit more RDPS in the 9070 XT, and memory size the same. But yeah, there's some like big differences, and I think that in terms of what I'm looking for, it really depends. So if I'm not happy with the RX 9070, then I can just go for a 5070 Ti. I could sell the 9070, and assuming it's obviously in good condition, hopefully, it will be fine, I think. I'll look up a benchmark of the RTX 5070 Ti again. I'm not a fan of NVIDIA, but you know, for benchmarks and stuff, and I've seen Blender benchmarks, it seems far better. I've seen benchmarks of it with the RX 9070. Yeah, I think that it's looking a bit rough in terms of the space again still. And I'm also hearing weird things from my computer which don't exactly inspire confidence in me. So it's a bit kind of iffy at the moment. I certainly feel a bit of anxiety around this. I was doing the building simulator earlier, and it sounded like it was dying. The fan was going really fucking hard, and I've never heard that before. Never known the fan to do that. So it's very interesting. I'm trying to think of what else. So this idiot uploaded a video of benchmarks before he even got the card. The fuck? How do I blacklist the channel? Michael Bridges. Okay. Sure. The fuck? That is so dystopian. Yeah, I think that I'm quite interested in looking for video cards at this point, and I'm interested to see how they perform and stuff given these specs. So, yeah, I don't know. It's all in consideration, and again, there's always that option. That's the important part. But I'm also looking to change my priorities again, sadly, annoyingly. I'm gonna have to buy things quickly now. Like literally my next payment, I'm just gonna have to get some of this because there is no certainty. Apparently mobile prices are going up, video card prices are going up, storage prices I think are going up. And obviously memory is gonna run out, and that's not good. I think memory is probably the biggest priority, but then video card is as well. So at a certain point, I'm almost justified in just getting a full system. It's a no-brainer. It sucks, but that's the reality here. And I've prepared like a full system on one of the sites I plan on getting this from, and it's still cheaper than what I was initially going to get, which is, I didn't know it, the fucking, what's it called? A PC specialist, isn't it? I forgot the name of it for some reason. Also, I'm just thinking maybe I'll just replace the RX 9070 XT anyway in this build. Just get the 5070 Ti, and the other reason I'm thinking of is I don't know about compatibility because I'm a bit scared about that sort of stuff. I kind of like having a system that matches each other in a way, and even though I've had a reliable system for the most part with an AMD CPU and a NVIDIA GPU, I'm not 100% sure they agree on each other. So I'm also skeptical about that. So I'm being aware of it. So I do think there's an argument to be made for a lot of this stuff. Also, the 5070 calls a bit less. Okay, that's very interesting. Ah. Yeah. I have to keep looking and stuff, and again, I'm getting sidetracked. It's so annoying. I fucking get fed up of being sidetracked. I've already lost so much time this morning doing this research, and I'm losing time again now. Somehow I'm on time for most things, but I'm not getting there quick enough, it seems. Too much anxiety. And also my mind's just all over the place. Also, what's going on? Why did I search that? Okay, that's weird. Take power up being strange. Yeah, also the annoying thing is the RTX 5070 Ti is like a 4K ready thing, so maybe there's even a world where I just get the 5060 Ti. And it's also much cheaper. And you know, it's good for 1440p, and why not? Also GDDR7, although the bus width is terrible, so that's actually a consideration. Actually, a lot of it is quite bad. Yeah, 5070. There's no contest. Anyway, that's about it, so let's move on. So, one of the coolest things about PC part picker, other than the lack of, for some reason, 9070 XT XFX Mercuries, which do exist, by the way, I've found them. Literally, people have tested them, and I don't know why they're on there. One of my favourite things about PC part picker, anyway, is it does actually show like all the builds using these parts, like if people have used them. Because I was looking at the cases and stuff, and obviously the Fractal Meshify 3 I'm pretty much solid decided on. Perfect size, perfect shape as well, and just looks sleek as hell. It's just modern, but it's nice, and you know, I'll be the first one to use the white case, it seems, because nobody else has used it. But also I find it interesting to see all the other parts I'm using. So for example, the Noctua fans I'm going to look at in a sec. I've already looked at the GPU. I've looked at like some other parts of the RAM. Actually, the RAM I looked at. Didn't really need to look at the NVMe's, but you can see builds with that in. It's also very curious. I guess the motherboard as well. I never really thought to look at the motherboard. Yeah, all these look sort of fresh. Was it a small form factor? How the hell do you fit in there? What is this case? Let's look at the first build. Yeah, look at the motherboard. Gigabyte AOS Master Z8090. A picture of it during the build. God, that's a messy table. I am not going to do something like that, I don't think. Also, he's got his face in the picture. But it leaked. Let's see. Yeah, it's on the reflection. What is this case? What's the spec here? Case. Tons of storage. Lian the 011 Dynamic Mini V2 ATX. That's actually nuts. How do you even fit the motherboard in there? I suppose it would fit, yeah, looking at it. I don't think you can fit in there. Huh, it's pretty crazy, and it's also got a GPU in as well, obviously. Crazy. It's a nice build. Nansec wood case, is that? Yeah, it is wood. Yeah, it looks pretty neat. What part am I looking at? The mobile, that was it. I forgot what I was looking at. Yeah, again, quite a few builds, and then the CPU. Surprising few builds, even though it's been poorly reviewed by one person. That's the only review. it's still interesting to see and look at the cores and stuff, and there's already a dual tower one here with RGB by Thermalite, which is very neat. See what else there is. Is there another fan? Yep, there's a Noctua one, which is quite interesting. Also with the RAM, it's quite interesting. Did see someone with the RAM with his coolers on. Seems fine from what I could tell. Double check that though. It depends on the RAM, to be fair. Oh, maybe not. It's just few builds there. Oh, there is one, yeah. Yeah, not two towers on it. But again, it's so interesting to see. It's a pretty cool feature, and I'll definitely upload mine when I get around to it. Let's look at the Noctua fans, see what builds they have associated with them. I wonder if you can sort by. No, you can't sort by CPU. You can sort by socket, but not CPU for some reason. Yeah, some of this looks quite interesting. You can see the CPUs on the thingy anyway, not all of them 9800X 3Ds, and just 3Ds in general. I have sort of debated whether I need an AIO, but everyone, like, nobody's actually talks about sufficient cooling for the 270K plus, and I haven't seen anyone sort of talk about it anyway. And a lot of these using sort of decent CPUs that get warm, but there's a 9950X 3D, I think it was saw there. Yeah, and that's obviously a similar sort of CPU, it's not the same obviously. There's another one there, 4K no RGB gaming build. Yeah, but I just can't find information on it, on that sort of thing, and I just want to go airflow with this because I just don't like the idea of exposing my components, especially this expensive, to a fucking water cooler. Like, go away. I'll look it up again, 270K plus CPU coolers. Like, nothing comes up. Reddit post, Noctua post apparently, Tech Power Up post, new one with Pangoli, whatever that is, Facebook note. There's a PC with it, supposedly, stock CPU cooler. Okay, I didn't know it came with one, but sure, I prefer better cooler there. Corsair, I think I was looking at the Corsair one previously. It's interesting that Corsair does it, and they suggest their own, which is a bit yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. It's a shame they don't do any like proper tower coolers. They really missed an opportunity there. Oh, hang on, Peggle is the one I use for the QVL, isn't it? Yeah, it is. That's very interesting. CPU core support list for the Ultra 7. Okay. Yeah, the Noctua is on there, which is great. It's not the cheapest one though, but it's fine. And it's the Thermalite Peerless Assassin, wherever you can get that, because I haven't found any. At least in the UK, I don't know where the hell they are. Fair amount. Yeah, I think that's good though. It's actually supported. The site is actually being more and more useful, it seems, as the day goes by. I much prefer the fan cooler. It's a lot safer. Does it say anything though? CPU coolers without liquid cooler. Actually, can you sort by that? Surely. You can? Minus liquid? Nope, that's not it. Liquid cooler, yes. Okay, that's not what that means. What it's saying minus then? Type? Nope. Video? Nope. No. Okay, there's no filter, which is a bit stupid, but I would probably say the type. You could sort it by type. Okay. There is a thing there. Duh. Yeah, there's some cheaper ones for sure, but I still think Noctua is gaining on for me because of just my house in general, and this room being extremely warm, and in the summer it's going to be necessary to cool it as much as possible, and this one's already struggling. In fact, I have to put a second fan on this current PC. This is 5800X. Got a Hydro 100 or something, 110 Corsair, which is not great. Yeah. Compatible doesn't even recommend this as a sort of technically compatible products if you put a cheap CPU cooler 465. What total draw power on 152? What draw power is supposed to say? Don't expect good temperatures, that's a good point. Let's try the Noct 2 again. So, okay, it's not searched properly. G2, it's TDP. Oh, it's not saying. Right, total what? No. TDP space, nope. Okay, how do I figure out the power then? Let me look it up again. TDP. They're in sight. Let's see. TDP, they don't even list either, okay. What does their own site then say about this? Compatible by CPU. Yeah, I did look at this before. It says good performance, best turbo overclocking headroom, and good mounting. I don't even want to overclock. Meanwhile, this first generation is a medium turbo overclocking and medium mounting. Yeah, there's no issues there. Yeah, I think this will be fine, to be honest. It's going to be interesting to build this, and if I do get it in one go, it's going to be quite hectic, I think. I get the feeling it will be. Because there's a lot of stuff to move around. I've also got to make sure I've got a way that's clear. I have to figure that out as well, actually. Move some stuff on the kitchen table. I probably can actually move it all to the one edge. Set like a barrier, perhaps, and move chairs, actually. It's not a fucking bad idea. I could put one in the conservatory, and actually two in the conservatory, if I matter, and then put boxes on the ground underneath. Okay, I've got a strategy. It's interesting. I'm going to use a dining table for this, and it'd be great to build it now before my housemate gets back. Before he starts harassing me about it and saying, "Oh, what you got?" Something like that. It's not actually how he speaks, thankfully. Yeah, it's quite exciting for a build, I suppose. Anyway, let's move on. I almost forgot about this. I don't know how true it is, but I get the feeling that when it comes to this AI slop that we're seeing these days, I literally do think when they like pile it on with something else, I think Microsoft's doing that with Copilot and Microsoft Office or 365 technically. That's really a sign that it's failing and it is working. Because why else would they do that? You know, people who actually had a choice in this and want a choice would not go for the AI. But obviously as they're trying to pair it together, making you have like impossible odds of trying to fund the AI's garbage knowing it's not making money. And so they're going to that route, which is quite telling really, isn't it? It's so fucking weird, and I see it with also some of the things I'm buying for my new PC. It says it's got AI cores and God knows what the fuck is in it. I don't even care that it's got AI cores. I'm not buying it for that either. So it's just... it's so sickening to see this shit, but at the same time it's also satisfying when you see them so desperate that they have to pair it together. But it does feel like a scummy way for them to essentially use that money to keep AI going. Which is real shit in the perspective of, you know, the consumer and the people who have to pay the fucking price for it. And then ironically, and I hate this because I posted this on Blue Sky, I hate that it is real. Because it'd be better for it to change on the worst, technically speaking, if there wasn't a focus away from... there was a focus rather away from animal agriculture, but sadly no. Someone did the research on r/vegan and found a bunch of sources proving that animal agriculture is worse than AI data centers. Which, as I've warned people countless fucking times already, they are far worse. Animal agriculture is one of the worst things for the planet in terms of you know, its impact, how it literally fucks everyone over. It's literally provable that animal agriculture is far worse, and I don't understand why people still ignore it and are scapegoating AI data centers when they are bad, they affect everyone. But animal agriculture, in terms of environmental impact, when we're arguing that, is pretty much an irrefutable truth. And same with ethics, because ethics plays a role in it, no doubt, because ethics is quite a big problem in animal agriculture. The way that it's done and the scale that it has to be done in itself causes environmental issues. And I find it pathetic when people are again fantasizing and obsessing over animal products when we're in an environmental climate catastrophe at the moment because of animal agriculture. I find this ridiculous and sad too. So, again, we're in a rough spot here, it seems. I don't exactly understand why everything's just falling apart here. It feels so shitty. I don't know what to say. But I hate that people are ignoring it. It's really the big thing that gets me. Just find it tiring as well, obviously. It feels like this shouldn't be a thing and it shouldn't have any issues. But no, we are seeing its problems again and again and again. Which is not fun. And once again, I just don't want to see any of this. It's so boring and stuff. Yeah. It's funny again that AI is failing. You know, they're trying to pilot all this stuff, and as I suspect, Nvidia might even have a program where you have to subscribe to use your graphics card, which is the reason I'm not going with them. Like, they're worst of the AI slop stuff, and that's saying something given AMD has barely done anything with it. And I don't really like AMD either, to be clear, especially with how they're trying to be buddy-buddy with Trump, same as Nvidia, but Nvidia is far worse at that too. So I want to choose the lesser of the two evils when it comes to this stuff, and even though I might end up getting a RTX card anyway, because of how obviously components work in them, it's still another annoying and interesting thing. Yeah, I don't really know what else to add, to be honest. It's just so fucking frustrating to see. This world is really going to shits, without a doubt. And animal agriculture will be the one that does it. Wouldn't you know? Anyway, let's move on. I don't know how I've ever never talked about that, but the saddest songs I've ever heard, and I've heard a few, and I don't like talking about them because they're sad. That's it really. I always try to be good vibes and stuff. Or even just heavy metal vibes, and even heavy tracks are not bad. I don't mind heavier tracks even. But sad songs, probably, there's quite a few out there. I think one of the first ones that comes to mind actually comes from childhood. There's some like Simpsons, and that's the track called Why Do Birds Suddenly Appear? Yeah, I forgot the actual name. There's an actual name for it, but I can't remember. Yeah, to me it's one of the saddest songs because it's just really emotional. It's a very sad sort of chord progression. But even then the emotion and stuff on it, it's meant to be like a wholesome wedding song, I think, but it actually sounds really sad though. That's a weird thing. So I was never sure about it, in all honesty. Even hearing it multiple times, I'm just like, not sure. But then I have to bring up the other sad song, which is, really enough, a song from childhood. Take That, Greatest Day. And you might be wondering, like, what the fuck are you on about? Greatest Day? That's not even a sad song. Unless you had it play when your family pet just died. On the way home. Yeah, that literally fucking happens. And it's very unfortunate. There are some sad characteristics, but that is sad as well. Because even though she is an annoying chihuahua, I saw Chihuahua Cross, I think, not actual Chihuahua. Ended up starting to miss her later on though. I actually said goodbye to her in a dream, which is crazy. Still remember that. Yeah, that song does get me a bit emotional. And then one of the other things, I'm trying to think, the other songs, yes. Probably Evanescence My Immortal is another one. It's definitely an iconic track, but it's very emotional, very sad feeling. I can't remember what the lyrics were, My Immortal lyrics. Evanescence is actually a really good band. I can vouch for them. I listened to the entire discography, and there it is. I'm so tired of being suppressed by my childish fears, and if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave, because your presence still lingers here. You might leave me alone, those wounds won't seem to heal. The pain is just too real. It's just too much that time cannot erase. When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you'd scream, I'd fight away all these fears. I held your hand for all of these years, but you still have all of me. You used to captivate me by resonating light. Now I'm bound to by the life you left behind. Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams. Your face chases away the sanity in me, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that is emotional. Not gonna lie, it's formed a bit of it too. Even remembering the track, because I didn't even remember upon like thinking about it. I'm gonna look at the meaning, like not to really do something that's not disheartening, distasteful. Songs are originally written by Moody from fiction and the music written by the piano. So the principal lyrics refer to a spirit that holds the memory of a grieving loved one, according to MTV. Yeah, that's pretty heavy still. So it's apparently written by someone else, not Amy Lee. It's written by Moody, which is very interesting. Ben Moody. But damn, like Amy Lee just delivers on that though. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, that's a really heavy song. But I'm trying to think of others because I'm no doubt missing a bunch of other ones, but there is one I'm going to mention. Frey, How to Save a Life. I'm pretty sure it's a heavy song about suicide. But yeah, that song gets to me as well sometimes. I've heard it a lot on the radio, even though it has a sort of more epic sort of bit happening in between. It's still incredibly emotional. Yeah, another incredibly sad song. And also, Johnny Cash Hurt, maybe? Kind of a very bluesy, sad song. The cover, obviously, because it's a cover. It's feel very emotional though. Yeah, it's surprising when there are sad songs. Even then, like there's soundtracks that have made me sad too. Like Undertale has some sad tracks. Deltarune, I think, has some sad tracks too. Even Sonic Adventure actually was one of the saddest fucking tracks I've ever heard. I forgot about that. It's one of the scenes that appears in like a Tails flashback, I think. Like when Sonic's like abandoning him, or he's running around trying to find Sonic. That was it. And he gets lost in the fucking forest. What the hell? And One Piece also has some very sad tracks as well. It's just fascinating to hear, and also they have a niche and they do have their sort of own thing. That it's like a whole music theory sort of thing. Obviously I don't really understand music theory if it is obvious enough. But it's so interesting. This is kind of why I bring it up. Sad songs do have a place, but again it's very... Yeah, it's just kind of its own thing. It's very interesting, but again, very sad, depending on what it is, obviously. I don't know what else to say. It's just a very interesting aspect to everything. But yeah, let's move on. Ooh, there is a second song, actually, for some reason, and I don't know why this song makes me sad, because it's upbeat and then it gets emotional. Jack Johnson, Upside Down, I believe it is. Hang on, was it Eric Johnson? Upside Down, Jack Johnson, yeah. No, wait, is it? Not the Taylor Dane one, even though that's a banger. That's a very fun song. Is it Taylor Dane? Upside Down, Taylor Dane, yeah. Well, Diana Ross, not Taylor Dane, what the fuck? Yeah, Diana Ross. Yeah, Upside Down. I remember at school, for some reason we were watching Curious George, one of our sort of end of year things, I don't know why, sort of like a treat for us, and that was the song that came on. So if you got an animated music video for that, I think. It's like a really sad sort of ending, because they're actually saying goodbye. What the fuck, I wasn't even invested in that, I was just like traumatising as a kid, in also a sad way. I didn't want to say goodbye to Curious George, even though I didn't pay attention to the movie. I kept going between the hall and the classroom, I think, just doing random stuff. It's kind of very ADHD like that, I guess. Anyway, anybody's got anything else to add, so yeah, let's move on. One of the things that Gary said about the technology thing, I just realised something. Yeah, it's basically relating to even a fundamental standpoint from governments and just seeing everything fall apart. So when they obviously start, well, Samsung, Micron, and SK Hynix, yes, I memorised the manufacturers this time, they obviously have fixed prices and have done a lot of damage for the economy and for consumers, people who actively want to create things. So when they're doing this shit, obviously it's terrible. But the thing we have to recognise is when they're doing this, it is coming at a cost, and in my opinion, the cost is human lives. If you don't believe me, obviously the AI data center stuff should confirm that as such, confirm as much. But I also have to mention that it's also from the perspective of how this technology is required for our daily lives. Whether it's phones with a memory or video memory chip or storage, or even a personal computer for a hospital. They're all necessary. So when these companies are making stupid prices for these, there's obviously something wrong, because when they are making it exclusive, they are actively damaging lives and infrastructure, therefore becoming a terrorist organisation. So this is what they're doing. Their greed has become such a bad part of the economy that they are a terrorist organisation now. All of them. So all of this is the reason why. And they're putting so much into AI that they ignore the average person. Like, this isn't a far-fetched fucking claim. And if it is, prove it. But this is the reality. When no hospital can get new computers because it's too expensive and it's not in their funding, when it's been damaged and ravaged by war, whether that's internet cables or whether it's cyber attack, you know, there's no coming back from that, and they could just, hence like the price increases, someone could just somehow run a software that shorts the fucking hardware and makes it unrecoverable. So everything that's locked on there is just gone. Same with servers. They could just do the same thing. So again, there's so much danger with this shit. So I have to keep mentioning. It's so fucking bad. people really need to pay attention to this, because I think it is important. When our lives are so dependent on this technology, which requires again this hardware, we can't be taking any risks, and so governments need to start doing something where they actually hold these companies accountable. Because this isn't about fucking profit. It's nothing to do with that. It's about people at the end, the consumer, the person waiting for an emergency call, or as a respondent, people needing an emergency call or a respondent. But this is who we're talking about when we're talking about this shit. Because it doesn't just affect PC gamers, which is where ironically it only started to affect them. And apparently it will affect smartphone users, so as I said, it does affect the consumer down the line, it affects the average person. So all this AI data center shit needs to be acknowledged as an inherently bad thing. Not to mention nobody uses it and nobody can trust it. In fact, what I think we should encourage doing is, when there's a rule that's obviously been made, in whether it's the US or the UK, Europe, whatever, and they've said, oh, we're going to build a centre, we don't care about you, start AI generating them. AI generate the people who've done it, show them doing something fucking heinous, and tell them how they like it, how good it is for them, like this is what you asked for. Because that'll be like the biggest fuck you that there could ever be. Because that is the problem with AI. Because this is what's going to happen. You could even provide some AI evidence and show that what the AI has generated on certain topics is bad. Whatever the data center was for anyway. So again, you could prove a lot of these things. And that's what should be done. And it could also apply to meetings and the current situations that are currently happening around it. Trying to get data centers in there. So again, we need to do literally actually go to war with corrupt people and like AI and even the memory companies. Otherwise, it's going to be them against us. Like it's just going to lead to that sort of situation, and we'll have no advantage about the technology for it. I don't know what to say here. We're in so much danger, and nobody is fucking singing this from the rooftops for some reason. As I said before, animal agriculture is a far more environmentally dangerous thing than AI data centers, but economy-wise, AI data centers are absolutely screwing us over. They're fucking our way of life and making us unable to do the things we want to. You know, I want to build a new PC. It's not even a gaming PC. And the memory alone, according to some sites, it costs between 590 quid to 1,000. And this is more than the CPU, the motherboard, the storage. The storage is quite high anyway for what I want, what I need. It's even more than the cooler. And the case, like, it's ridiculous. And it's almost as much as the video card. It depends on obviously the video card you get, but mine is like an XFX Mercury RX 9070 XT. And yet, this shit is damaging us. It's causing many problems. This is the consequence. That's what happens when the shit is unchecked and when nobody does anything about it. Nobody in government does a thing. You need to start taxing these companies, because if they are truly right in their prices, they should have to justify it. They should have to show they're working out for why it's actually the correct pricing based on production or supply and demand. And you know, if it's price fixing, you'd figure that out pretty quickly, as it currently is being exposed for. That's kind of what's happening anyway. It is price fixing, because it's been proven to be price fixing. So yeah, I don't really know what else to fucking say. I just feel like the situation is so ridiculous, it's laughable. I don't understand why it is not getting attention when it really should get some fucking attention. It's a ridiculous amount of just bullshit at the moment. Nobody is paying it any mind, which is just baffling to me. Like, we're all seriously in big trouble, and nobody's banging an eyelid. Nothing. Absolute zilch. Anyway, I'll try to distract myself from this dystopia, and I'll go and do something else now. So yeah, let's move on. This is a random thing. I felt like talking about it because it was interesting. It's I forgot the name of the channel. It's a TF2 channel. Does Schwartz reacts to Reddit content. There's one about. There's actually a funny one about the duality of TF2 players I have to mention. I think there's something like saying, I hope someone doesn't say the N word, and then someone says, yeah. And then another one that cut below it actually says it. It's funny. But then there's also a topic that's kind of not so funny, but also it can be entertaining. It depends on how you look at it. Basically asking, where did trans come from? I think it was anyway, if I remember. And I think it's an interesting question. Where did it come from exactly, or what caused it? And the answers in the chat obviously ranging from not serious to serious. It's like the devil and God, evolution. I can't remember what the other one was. I have to actually look at the show again, I think, if I can find it. Difficulty of, yeah, there it is. Jews. Trans always there. Yeah, I think it's interesting, as well as like an actual discussion. And I think actually the correct answer is evolution. Because when I look at it, when I think about everything that has led to us to be here, led to us being here rather, evolution seems to be the thing. As far as I know. Because it literally started with someone, obviously something rather, being born in like very specific conditions, and then evolving into fish, and evolving into land mammals, and then obviously evolving into everything we know now, including dinosaurs. And that obviously is a part of evolution, but gender wasn't a thing, as far as I'm aware. As far as I know, it's to do with the balance, like hot and cold, pain and pleasure, like it's to do with balance, and that's when obviously something like trans could have been a thing. And I think that is literally part of evolution. Obviously, to get here to begin with, to be created, is obviously another thing. Well, I'd rather not use the term created, but rather, I guess, spawned. I think spawned is probably the better term when it comes to this. I think people forget that. But spawning doesn't imply a creator. You know, literally think we just came in out of nothing. Spawned or even morphed. I think morphed might even be another word. Into obviously that organism that became fish, and obviously grew into what we are now. But I think it's like the trans discussion and gender. I think as well, like sex as well, also came from that. And obviously, as we've evolved and we've become essentially one of the smarter species on the planet. Not the smartest, to be fair, because there's a lot of idiots here. But we are smart enough, I think, and we do recognise this stuff, so it does actually have a sort of impact, I suppose, and we do have that proof that, yeah, that we literally are a part of evolution, and transgenderism and genders and sex, all part of evolution. We can prove that. It literally is a thing. You know, that's what it is, and that's where it came from. I could be mistaken, but this is what I think it is. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that for what it is. But that's like the point. So obviously the answer to the question, I think, has to be evolution. I could be wrong. I'm willing to hear people out on it and see if there's actually a response of some sort. But to me, this is what it is, and it's black and yellow, black and no. That's another thing. Yeah, I don't know what else it could be though. If it's not the evolution, then has to be something else, but when I'm talking about evolution, I'm talking about it in broader terms rather than the specific, which is like societal evolution, is obviously where trans comes from, but also we can observe it in nature. Clownfish, I believe, are one of the first species to we've known to transition. They change sex based on fixed certain conditions, like they go from male to female, or something like that. I can't remember what it was exactly, but we can observe that sort of stuff. The same with homosexuality. It comes from evolution. I think when we realise that hot and cold, obviously, it can't really be a thing, that we evolved to rely on each other, and that's obviously where, like, obviously two meets. I don't know how to explain it exactly, like when a man and a man are alone, obviously, you just have that, you have that thought, maybe because you can't find another female, you just do it with each other. That's pretty much what you do. Because again, it's like, that can be how lonely the world is, and given that females also have to contend with a lot of things in life, like being able to, or being unable to birth children, and even, like, this gets into darker topics around nature, but even then die in childbirth, females are at a bigger disadvantage, so that's why I think homosexuality is a thing more so in nature than it is even our own species. They start to rely on that because their own species can't do that. I mean, when we can't find someone, we can't find a partner. And even then, it's just become such a normalised thing that, to some of us anyway, not a lot of us, but I think some of us, we can either have both as partners or just one or the other. And that's how it works. It's kind of part of evolution. That's why that happens, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, it's better to back this up with sources, were there any, but I'm just merely speculating. As it's not full evidence, but just on thought alone, it seems to be, I suppose something's changed there. That seems to be what the conclusion is, from what I can tell. So yeah, I don't know what to say. I think this is a really important topic either way. I think it's definitely one for discussion, and it does matter. But yeah, don't know what else there is to add, to be honest. Again, I think people need to start taking a stance of looking at things from a scientific perspective rather than obviously like a speculative perspective like I'm doing at the moment. I think it's better to do the scientific perspective if that's in your range of things that you can do with that. I think it's really important. So yeah, people need to pay attention to that, obviously. And also, a discussion like this, especially in TF2, it's not often worth engaging it in a serious sense because a lot of people can be like serious and evil. Speaking of which, there's another topic I thought about speaking on, but I'm not 100% sure. It's all about the state of child predators and stuff, and there's this apparent documentary that Charlie covered. It's something like EDP, I can't remember what it's fucking called now. Some weird, really creepy guy. He's just public about all his shit, basically all his crimes. And he idolises people who protect him. Basically, Trump, Elon Musk, Andrew Tate. It's fucking horrible. It's shit. But why someone like this is allowed on the street is just a mystery to me. But I think, ironically, when it comes to that sort of discussion about sexuality, because yes, unfortunately, when it comes to child predators, we have to talk about sexuality because it is related. It is the same thing. It's the same umbrella. But obviously, the difference between paedophilia and LGBTQ plus is gender. They're two different things entirely. Whereas paedophilia is about age, and paraphilias themselves, and that's the umbrella that comes under paedophilia. obviously is a different thing entirely. It requires a different state of being, so it's separate. But when it comes to discussing that, I think there are obviously like big warning signs about those sort of people. And I think some of the worst things probably, especially from experiences I've had from interacting with people online, is when they start to objectify people. And I think when they objectify children, especially in this case, I think the documentary, yeah, that's someone who is extremely dangerous. So it's not easy to sort of pick out criminals in this case, because some of them are far worse than others. Some of them are just inherently fucking evil, and it's those sort of people that need to be dealt with, like, immediately, like whatever way possible. Admittedly, I think killing someone doesn't necessarily get to the point, doesn't even solve the core issue, but at least doing something to them will perhaps try and change them. But I think even then, if there's someone who actually has an ounce of heart in them or something, there is a way to change them. You just have to find the right sources, the right resources. Obviously, there's like help charities out there that's confessing to their thing to begin with, whatever it is, whether it's a crime or even just a paraphilia it is. I mean, trying to seek help, trying to get advice, and then seeking treatment, because they do exist as well. Admittedly, they don't all work, but you could sure as hell try. I think that's important. It's more important than trying to stir up a storm like unfortunately Charlie is here. And if you want to be nicer to the world and actually help victims, the best thing you could do is to stop treating perpetrators like they have to hide everything. Like they have to try and avoid getting caught. Because I think that's like one of the worst fucking ways to deal with them. If anything, we want them all to be publicly exposed and be out there, obviously, to monitor them and obviously stop them from doing this shit. But there's a possible world where even someone like this could be in society. But the mindset is obviously a different thing entirely. And depending on what that is, it really does impact people. And in general, weirdly enough, one of the ways I sort of like to argue about it, because it reminds me of when I used to sort of watch a lot of porn of trans people, and someone pointed out to me rightfully, it was kind of like there's a term for it called a chaser, and that's essentially what I used to be, and I eventually learned what it was, and it sort of shocked me, because I was like, but I don't really objectify them, so what is it that I can do better here? And I realised that I could actually treat them like human beings first and foremost, and obviously sex is its own thing. Doesn't necessarily need to be treated with, like, I don't know what to say actually. Not disrespect, sex should never be treated like that. It should always be treated with respect, I think is what I'm trying to say. And that's the point that I came out of with it. And I think it should even apply to other people, especially these more darker topics. There shouldn't be a need to hide these things. In fact, I think the more public people can be about it, the easier it will be to address the problems. But I think if we create evil people by forcing them in the closet, forcing them to be secretive, then that also creates issues. I think that is more of a burden on society and the victims than it is obviously dickheads like these going onto a documentary idolising complete evil morons. And really enough, why wasn't Netanyahu or Ben, whatever his name was, on there? Didn't really think about that, because they endorse rapists and child rapists. That's weird. Anyway, yeah, this is an issue again. I think it's about trying to change people's minds and, if it's possible, hearts, and spreading awareness and education about this sort of stuff. Because if you actually care about the victims, to be honest, I've been there as well myself as a victim. You do need to do the right thing. You need to actually choose the path that creates the least amount of destruction. And in that case, it's obviously education. And obviously exposing someone is fine, but don't publicise it. Publicising it will always backfire, and that's what we see now. That's what we see with all these vigilantes. I don't know why Charlie didn't mention it though. It's a bit confusing actually. But vigilantes definitely are a big issue for that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know what else to add, to be honest. And I really think this is a topic of worth discussing. Because it is a real thing. It's a real issue, and it is a part of evolution as well. Let's not kid ourselves. I think one of the things that came out of that, our evolution, is obviously having more specific sort of desires and needs and stuff, and that's because we are too intelligent. We get very, I don't know what to call it, very in our own heads and very stuck in our ways. We start to, so I get distracted by Charlie's voice for some reason. I found a new video. Yeah, we have so much on our minds and so much in our lives that we start to do things like that. We start to fetishize and want things that are very weird and specific. In fact, I've even developed fetishes I never thought I would before. You know, very weird ones. But that happens. That's because we have complex minds and complex lives. But I think the important thing is that you're not objectifying someone and you're not treating it as if it's like a sort of game, like a way to pick up someone easy or quickly. Just trying to be the nicest person possible is always and should always be the priority. In our evolution, obviously, it does change things a bit. But I still think that's one of the best things we could do for our evolution, is to be kind. That's a thing that's very easily forgotten these days, especially with, again, people like this dickhead in documentary, I call them. I think kindness goes a long way. And I know, as I've said, I've spoken to people with these exact issues. And, you know, some of them have the heart to change, but some don't. And I think it really depends on the sort of person. But I think that is important. Obviously, get the help you need and do whatever. But I'm not gonna rat someone out just because they've confessed something like that to me, something as serious as that. I know a lot of people would, and you might think it saves lives, but actually it doesn't. Again, that's a harsh reality. And I guess the proof for it not helping is just causes them to be more secretive, to prove and hide everything. You know, what the fuck does it even do? Except to increase the anxiety around it and make it more sort of a secret thing, to hide it. Again, I see no benefit to it until the systems actually address it properly. There isn't any way you can help the victims either. So yeah, I don't really know what else to add, so I sort of went onto a tangent. These both topics are sort of close to my heart, I suppose. Well, the second one less so, but I've done research on it, and obviously with my own trauma, it's important to get closure and to be able to do the right thing in the end. It's one of the biggest things that's challenged my bias over the years. Like, why do people do this? And it turns out it's not by choice. And it really fucking sucks to be that way. And having been in a situation like that before, again, it's real shit. I don't know what to say. It really sucks. Anyway, I got anything else to add, so let's move on. So, I had a clusterfuck, and this was related to an audio interface issue. It seems, anyway. This is really annoying, because I just don't understand how this is even an issue. So I got the Focusrite Scarlet Solo, and it was like a big recommendation. And I'm willing to try things, and I did. But almost immediately I had issues because my headphones weren't working. If you don't know, I have Melomanias, which are USB headphones. To be fair, I can actually... You know what? Yeah, I'm going to replace them. Even though I've got the heaviest use still, but they're a great backup anyway. Point is, I wanted to use these headphones with them specifically, with the audio interface, and then I couldn't figure out how to get it to work. I tried everything, easier for all. I tried changing input and output, I tried changing many things. To no avail. So nothing worked. Great, thanks. Thanks for that. A bunch of fucking waste of time for nothing, it seems. So that was great. Not fun, gotta admit. So yeah, that didn't help. And then, obviously, I tried to troubleshoot it. There was nothing. No advice, nothing. So I was stuck. And I complained to the Reddit subreddit and kind of made a few stupid comments myself. Not happy with them. Because I'm a bit mentally ill. That should be obvious by this point. I mean, what? So yeah, I'm just fucking tired of this and trying to figure things out. And I was just about to send it away to return it. But then someone came out and commented something very interesting. So I was starting to get very sort of bothered by this all because obviously this sort of situation is high stress. We're talking erectile dysfunction stress. I'm not even joking. It's a real thing. I do struggle. Actually, I wonder if I can use Viagra anyway. I think it's a very big problem, and it's become such a problem that I need to figure this out because I want to record high quality audio with my instruments and I want to have little to zero delay. But it seems like there's just too many barriers to entry with this, and with the Scarlet interface I was hoping that I'd just be able to plug and play. You know, just headphones still in, put in the audio interface, put in my guitar, and that'll work. Didn't work like that, did it? No, because of course it wouldn't. So that happened and I'm very pissed off. But now, as I was going through the Reddit comments and stuff, looking at what people were saying, and you know, one of them caught my eye. I was thinking, what do you mean you need this for an audio setup? Because I've always thought my USB Practise cable would work well, as it has done actually, to be fair, with the recent covers. But I'm wondering as well like, what you mean by that and why you say I need to put headphones in. And people aren't specific enough about this sometimes. It turns out obviously studio monitor headphones, I'm aware of them, are absolutely necessary for the use case there. So it does become a bit of a question of what to use, and I'm looking again at studio monitor headphones because I don't want fucking speakers. But I want something that works, and you know, I used to use the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros, and they were decent headphones. They weren't perfect, but they had an audio curve, which is a bit annoying because I assume studio monitor means that it's just gonna be its own thing, you know. It's not going to have many issues. But it turns out it did have quite a few issues, and I don't really understand why. But the noise cancelling from it, from what I could tell, was actually not bad. So that was a bit confusing for me. I don't know, go into that. But I do think that looking into this again, I think actually getting a pair of headphones just to try it may just be the way forward for me to figuring this out. And also I could be wrong in this, but to me that might be the way forward, and even regardless of what these products have on them, I think I'm just going to have to give it a try. You have to see what it does and how it works. look at some of the things on noise cancelling, excellent noise cancellation, replaceable cables. Because I'm not looking at I'm looking at, in lack of a correct term, on these. I don't need ANC, because the biggest problem with headphones I've had is the amount of audio that can actually like pass through. So I'm trying to look at the reviews for the noise cancelling on these, read more. I don't want to view the individual fucking things, stop taking me back to this thing. Noise cancellation is good. Okay, it's a long review. Noise cancellation is good, but if you listen to music with public transport, volume of 80%, then expect people to hear it and likely to give you looks. Is important, the volume is quite loud. 3% volume should be suitable enough when you're at home. Okay, so maybe not the Audio Technicas, I don't know. They're not noise cancelling, but block out enough, unlike other headphones I've tried. Yeah. So maybe a no-go, I'll have to look it up, like best studio monsters. I'm just going to try these, that's what it's going to be. Best noise cancelling, because I don't want ANC. Apparently ANC and USB audio is a speaker which I need to melt my ice. It's like a thing, like it's a delay sort of put on top of it, which is very interesting to look at, because that is an issue. So if you're hearing a weird noise, just bring up my thing. Water. Not full yet. So yeah, oh yeah, that's sort of full. Yeah, I'm just making sure, putting safer. I don't want to knock anything over. Sudden movements often do that actually. A weird fact, as far as I can tell. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just doing research on this, I think, and annoyingly it's making me delayed again with time waste curse. I'm gonna have to figure this out, because I want to get this working. I want to get no delay rather, get it to work, and see this set up properly and get it to work, because I want to see good audio from this, obviously. But I just want the best option for audio, and actually I could ask in /autism, that might be a good place. Maybe. Yeah, I really want things to work properly. Want the setup to be good, and the thing I realised here, it's just making me a bit sort of curious and excited in a way, is that the headphones can actually be a good thing if I can get the right ones, because what I really need isn't active noise cancelling as it currently works. Obviously it's useful to have, and as I said, I can use these as sleeping headphones. But it's actually to have the ability to cancel out a lot of the noise. So for example, with these on, I can sort of hear myself talk, but I can also hear my computer, which is not good. And I could also hear my aircon as well without the noise cancelling on. With it on, I could hear much less, and that's good. But that's what I want to aim at with that. I don't need the effect of noise cancelling. I just need the physical effect of it, not the digital effect, the physical. And there's a big difference in that, I believe. So I think that's really important. So yeah, anyway, the audio interface, I'm going to keep it, I think. Just going to rest here until I get the headphones, and I'm also going to have to figure out a situation where I can be able to get my PC parts as well at the same time, because that is going to be an issue. I'm not sure if I should just get the RAM and everything now. Everything's going to go up in price, but I don't know. It's a bit complicated. I don't really know what to do here exactly. Also, why is this? That's an 90 standard. Didn't know how to do them. All that stock, yep, no surprise. But I thought of getting a loan just to get the computer stuff, and maybe just the current parts, which as far as I'm aware only amount to a small sum of about 1,600 quid. Yikes. Yeah, roughly. The storage apparently 500 quid. Video card I think is like 700 or something. 750. Really, that's a lot. And the memory is another 650, so yeah, it's a lot. But Jesus, it's really bad out there right now. And even then, the motherboard's apparently going up in price, so you're getting a lot of this stuff out of the way now is probably better, and also given the state of the world, you never know. I might just have to get it now just to see things done, obviously, to get it done properly with the right parts. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know what else to add, so yeah, I just want to update people on that. I tried the interface and it didn't work, so I'm going to have to look for headphones that work with it. But as far as I know, the drivers work, which is a positive. That's a big plus. I would like the idea of an interface anyway. It's kind of neat. I can also put it on its side, as I have done actually. Because yeah, that's like the way I... That's the point, it did generate heat. I'm not sure if you're supposed to have it on its feet or its side or what, but I don't have anywhere else to put it. But whatever way it goes, it needs to go some way, because I don't have anywhere to put it. I have somewhere in front of me, but not that far. And again, it might actually just be better there in the centre. But how do I route the headphones around if it hasn't got a long cable? I don't know. Could fit under there, but my thing is, that's maybe a better position. Maybe I'll just hit it too much though. I fucking, I don't know. It's something to figure out. Anyway, that's about it, so let's move on. Yeah, no. One of the things that I realised earlier, which, seems kind of obvious at first, but not to everyone. It wasn't obvious to me at first, but it didn't really, I don't know if the thing I did have any consequences to my body or anything. But it's always worth, when you do something, whether it's a kink or a fetish or even just something non-sexual, it's always worth doing a bit of research beforehand, because you do find out things you may not know. And that's usually about something like safety. Or it could just be about the thing itself, like whether there is like no problems at all. It's just good. But I think it's important. I really think there's not enough advice like that that's going around, and especially when it comes to teaching like, I don't know, like children as well. It's also important to tell them to do research on these things, not use AI, just do research, light research, and use trusted sources for it. I think that's really important to, really important, was it, inspect? No. Important, I can't remember the name of it, but it's important to look into that and figure everything out before you do it, obviously. Like I've said, I want to do my own drilling, for example, and I don't know the safety behind it exactly, other than a stud detector will most likely be necessary for it, so you can actually drill. And this is just a part of guitar hangers, and I will do one on my own eventually, but I can't obviously be like 100% sure, so I'd always look up safety and stuff before doing it, like a step by step, for example, putting studs into a wall, because you only really need to know how to drill for starters, and then put the stud in itself, and then put the screws in. And that's how you do it, as far as I'm aware. Like, those are the only steps. Obviously the screws with the thing you're putting in, which in my case is guitar hangers. But yeah, it's still important though. I think people really could learn a lesson or two from being able to see that, to the foresight to actually be safe with all this. So yeah, I don't have anything else to add, so anyway, let's just move on. And another one. Well, I think it's interesting. but it's also annoying. So I couldn't really control that. So let's keep having these coughs that come out of nowhere. You know, I was just I woke up this morning. I woke up this morning and I heard someone shouting or something, and I was like, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Who's shouting? And it turns out it's my other housemate. Yikes. And I don't really know what goes on in his mind sometimes, because this isn't obviously the first time he's done it, because obviously it did come as a surprise, but at the same time it's like, why are you doing it this time? The only other times I've remembered him doing this is when I was in the last house, and this issue happened once, luckily. Only in the, well, once in the times I was there, but other times it's been like grabbing the washing up and putting it away, which wakes me the fuck up, annoyingly. But I seem to encounter this shit a lot, and this is the thing with places that aren't accommodated to people the way that it should be accommodated to them. It sucks for them. And it just means that they pay the consequence. So if you hear me and see me going in and out, it's because I'm trying to cough and cover it up, obviously. I will touch my mic, but yeah, it'd be annoying to do that. But yeah, like, this isn't the first time he's done it, and I'm just like, what are the people doing here? Like, he's paying you to support him, and you're not doing anything to change this. You're not doing anything to stop this from happening. And I did suggest the rightful move of either retirement home or going somewhere that's more accommodated to him, aka other older people. Because yes, he is old. But I just seem to be ignored on that, and so does the other housemate I've been talking about as well. So I just don't understand. A lot of this shit is confusing, and I don't know what to do about it, but it's led to so much stress that I ended up spending I keep getting ED again. Like, yeah, a bit of a personal thing, but it's annoying because I have things to do. I can't be dealing with ED at that time. And even then, I guess I'm addicted to my D, for lack of a correct term. Yeah. I don't really know what to do, but it's so frustrating because it feels so simple to solve, and yet it's not done in the slightest. It's not acknowledged or anything. It's just so tiring and bullshit. I just hate hearing about this. And every time it's like, I get up, I go into the kitchen, he's already in the living room, just fucking shouting his head off at me, poor people. And I told him, like, well, he shouldn't have fucking woke me up then. Like, he knew I was listening, for some reason. I know my room can make some noise, but that's really its own thing. But yeah, he like confronted me on that as if it was like a bad thing. When you're making it public, and also I can attest because I heard this from outside my window. Neighbours could hear it. Shocker. But then why is he here? I don't understand it. Like, I don't know if I'm missing sight or what. I know usually I would say that he's as much right for him to live here than I do, but at the same time he's just not suited for it. And I don't know, he's lucky to come across a guy like me because I'm extremely patient. Like, only today is like one of the first times I lost my corn in a while towards him. And the other time was like a month or two ago. But it does happen to me, believe it or not, and I do argue. It shocks people that I actually do that, but I can do it, I can stick up for myself. People really underestimate me because I'm just quiet. And, you know, fuck off. Because that tough shit, you'll face the full brunt of my faults. Like, it's your own problem. You've asked for it. And it's like the same in these situations. Same thing I did with M actually, in the other place. Just so bad. I genuinely don't understand it. It's so fucking dumb. Yeah, I fucking hate it, obviously. So I don't really know what exactly can be done. Just feels so unfair, in all honesty. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to address it. But, I can't do the same thing I did with M because it doesn't really affect all people exactly. It was a really different situation. M's main problem was that he made constant noise and all around women just to have sex with them in the room next to me. Great. And I don't even know if there is partners because they're always different. So I don't know. He always sort of pretended they were partners, but I don't know. M was just a fucking weirdo. And yeah, I don't really like bringing it up all the time because it wasn't always awful, but these moments were just like sus as fuck. And I've heard stories from my other housemate here about what he's done, and it does ring alarm bells all over the place. But it's also a testament to how poorly run this place is too. And it doesn't surprise me. I really think that there is something wrong with this place. Every time I think, maybe I could just live here a little longer. Maybe I could cope. But this happens and then I'm just like, okay, no. Like, enough is enough at this point. I've already complained, I've already said the issues. I've already said why I don't want to pay the money to them. One, because it's too expensive, and two, because of this shit. I'm not getting my money's worth. So it's an absolute fucking joke. And just for the record, they asked for, I believe it's, roughly 20%, 22% of my overall income, which is stupid. Hello? I'm paying for someone to come in and leave. That's it. I don't often need the help. And then when I do need it, there's no one to help. It's so fucking bad. I don't even know what I'm paying for. It feels like a joke. Yeah, just again testament to how poorly run it is. And then this guy, the other housemate, the one who's been showing, he just doesn't follow any sort of routine and just goes out randomly. So there's never any sort of case where, he's like, I don't know, like in when someone's coming around. It's just a bunch of stupid shit like this all the time. Again, I hate bringing it up, but this is reality. It's sort of the hell I'm being put through. Because it is hell. Again, I'm paying people for this, and I'm not really getting any benefits for it. And the only times I'm ever going to see a benefit is one when I need an appointment, which I do happen to need also. Did I cross off? Yeah, crossed off colonoscopy on the to-do list. But the other time I was like, if I need to go shopping somewhere, assuming there is a place to shop in the future, which I'm not certain there is. I may need to do that, and they'll need to help me with that. So like drive me there, help me with shopping and stuff, getting that out and whatever. Yeah, tiring shit. Anyway, let's move on. I suppose this is a question to say brother. Actually, yeah. Sort of a question might be asked and have to be said. You've got to think about this from Zach's Tech Tough, another one of his shorts about why his content is only about building PCs, and it makes sense, obviously. And that is a core audience. However, as I have to point out, as I've been trying to get into my new PC build for, well, in the future, we're talking about months away probably, you realise that PC building is not what it used to be, and it's not in the sense that building the PC itself is difficult. In fact, it's kind of difficult for things to go wrong unless you really screw up the CPU or the motherboard. But the things that do go wrong, from what I notice, isn't actually to do with the build itself. It's to do with the parts. Now hear me out. At the moment we're in one of the worst times to look into PC building and stuff, and to get the parts we need it will cost a fortune. And yeah, that's not good. I'm having to sell stuff to reach that point, and it sucks. But one of the harder parts in that, other than having to dish out the money, is finding the right part. So if I go to PC Part Picker, for example, which I do sort of vouch and commend because it is actually a very good platform. PC Specialist, why the fuck is it auto-suggested now? Delete. I don't know why that's there. Did use it before. But if I go to a builder, the first thing it asks is CPU, and this is already a rabbit hole that you have to get into. It depends on obviously the use case. If you're a gamer, you could get away with pre-builds. But if you're actually designing a PC for a specific need or purpose, then you need to go down a rabbit hole of whatever it is you're looking for. If that's rendering or 3D graphics or, you know, CPU intensive loads, it really depends. So building is not easy at all, and picking the parts is difficult because of that. So yeah, like, well, building it itself can be a challenge. It isn't always. You have to troubleshoot, unfortunately. Having to find the parts is hard. And then after that, you have to figure out what the best cooling is. And I'll let Zach's take turf's idea on how you should design, or rather build around a cooling system. And that is with CPUs, obviously. And you have to pick a type of fan until we get to a higher point. So if you're going with a 3 series on whether it's Intel or Ryzen, you need to get a single fan. That's it. You don't really need anything else. For a 5 fan, you need a single tower. For a 7 fan, a 7 core, I mean, not 5 fan, 5 core, but 7 cores, you need a dual tower. So 5 core, 5 series rather than 6 cores equals 1 tower. And basically every 2 cores it goes up 1 tier. Except when you get into the higher end CPU cores like Noctua, which as far as I'm aware are still king when it comes to cooling down higher core counts. So if we're going with a core that's like maybe there's 12 of them or 16, you do need to consider something a bit better for cooling. And maybe a Noctua won't even cut it because you might need something like an AIO cooler. Already a bunch of research needed, and you need to figure out, depending on what they are, what the sort of temperatures are, you need to figure out what they do. And you could go with what the benchmarks are, which is fine usually. Like that, whenever someone provides a benchmark for a CPU, you can find the temperatures on it. Oftentimes, I know Game of Nexus typically uses a Arctic liquid freezer, I believe. Liquid freezer 3, was it 2? I think it's 3 actually. That's what they use for all their CPUs, and you can get an idea of what it's like. And that's assuming you have the case with it as well. So the case provides airflow, which is another complication. So already 3 rabbit holes in one, and this is just for the cooling, and it becomes a big issue. And then you have to look into motherboards, which itself isn't a big issue, but there are specific things, and this is why PC Part Picker is so helpful, because it can highlight big issues with them. So if you go with like a incorrect motherboard for what you're building, so I've got like the 270K Plus, if I was to go with a like older version, it wouldn't work because you wouldn't have the necessary components for it. It's like it could be the wrong socket, it could be even the wrong setup. Might not even support RAM, and that's another thing entirely. And after the motherboard, I've picked an Aorus Master for anyone wondering. You get onto the memory, and the memory has another fucking rabbit hole. Like, what is going on? It's so stupid. Sorry, coughing. It is so dumb. This is exactly what I mean with PC building being inaccessible. It's not the build, it's the picking parts. Unless you are really knowledgeable, like all these other places are, it's really difficult, and then it justifies the pre-builds and the custom builds, because they'll have an idea of what they're doing, and in fact you can even call some of them to get like not just like a quote, but also a way to design your system. They can actually make one for you, and you know, even if it's for a small fee, that would often be worth it. Anyway, memory is another thing, because then you have to look into QVLs, which I didn't even realise were a thing, but they're more reliable when you apparently use a QVL checker. And the QVL checker I use is, let me check what the name is, Pangoli, that's it. It's a really reliable thing I've used, and you just copy and paste the part number, part ID as a long series of letters and characters and stuff. Although it's just letters and numbers, to be fair. And you'll see if it's in there. Copy paste search, and you'll see. If it doesn't show up under only show QVL, because this is an important thing, you have to tick it. Because I did that before and I thought, oh, all of them work, that's great. Turns out I didn't have QVL check ticks, so it's like, oh, okay, so none of these work properly then. So yeah, you need to do that to be safe. And then with the memory itself, you need to make sure it's the right size, the right timings, and the right speed as well. Although speed is more important than timings. So yeah, again another rabbit hole, and also the type of memory. You need to make sure it's like DDR5, and even be careful with things like the type of DIMM, because sometimes DIMMs aren't actually good, as far as I'm aware. There's like UDIMM, SODIMM, and there's different things in that, but it's too complicated for even me to understand, so it gives you an idea of how bad it is. And luckily after the memory we get to storage, which is more simple, but the only thing you need to know is SSD is quicker. And whether you use a SATA SSD or an M.2, it really doesn't matter, because both are fast. The only thing with SATA SSDs is you need to make sure, one, your motherboard supports them, and two, your power supply supports them. So again, we're going back and forth here. But M.2s, you also need to make sure for that as well, because it goes on another slot on the motherboard, rather than the SATA. It's not the same thing. And you only ever want a hard drive for like general storage, so pictures, images and stuff. You don't really want it for other stuff, except unless you're working on really high-end stuff like art or so. You need to move around stuff quite fast and save it quickly. So yeah, storage is quite easy though. You also need to pay attention to the terabytes written. The higher the better, but I'd argue that you often don't need to go around what is essentially like 100 times the amount of the storage itself, so you often don't need to do that. You don't need to go that high, because it really varies. You can go something cheaper, but again it varies. And reliability is important, so it's always worth checking if your components are reliable. So look up, for example, 9800X 3D, which has a history of going wrong, although apparently it's rare. But it has a history of going wrong regardless, and it's not good. But it's up to you if you want to risk that. It requires motherboard updates, and it requires checking CPU temps after much usage. Yeah, it's a whole mess. Anyway, the video card is like the next thing here. And video cards aren't too complicated, it just really varies based on the specs, and this is why you look at benchmarks. The only other thing you need to take into account with GPUs is, I guess, the bottleneck, and the bottleneck depends on what you're using it for. If you're 1080p, you need a good CPU and a decent GPU, but if you're above that, you need a decent CPU and a good GPU. So it changes, and then 4K is the same situation. Basically similar thing going on there. So it really depends. And obviously you could care about aesthetics later, but aesthetics shouldn't be the focus for build in my opinion. Everything's been RGBified and it's not necessary. You can only really justify having it on the cases but not the components, because you rarely see the components. Yeah, I've had this system here for a long time on my Aorus Gigabyte RTX 3070 and I rarely look at it. It's got RGB, it's got a screen on it, it's not on those advanced screens to be clear. At least as far as I know. So I can't put anything on it, I don't think. But yeah, you don't need something fancy, you just need something that functions. It's like function over fancy, that's what I'd call it. So it's really important. Then there's a benchmark thing to keep into account there, where depending on the brand and the name that you get, the name of the branded type you get, it really varies in performance and cooling, and both are fairly important anyway. But cooling I would say is more important, because it's better to keep your system cooler than it is obviously performative, in my experience anyway, because if it's too performative, it means it's going to warm up a lot more. And you can get those cards that reach middle grounds, like the XFX Mercury, for example, is my case with the RX 9070 XT. And they seem to perform well and cool well. And that's just like a perfect middle ground. Literally. And they're so rare to come across now because everyone buys them. They're so good for that reason. But you can get away with a cheaper one, and that's why looking at benchmarks for brands is pretty important. I'm saying not necessarily just the individual benchmarks that people do every now and then, compared to, but Hardware Unbox, for example, does card roundups, I believe. Sorry, I had to do that because I'm worried over much shit myself. Yeah, and then there's the case. The case is another thing, and this ties into effect another thing. So benchmarks in a case are important too. And it's important to note in the benchmarks they may substitute something like a case fan, which is another thing. For example, I've got like the Noctua NHDA15 for the CPU. So the CPU will be called by that, and then the case I've chose the Fractal Objectification 3. This way it draws in air, it pumps it out, and it's good. It keeps it at a normalised temperature, so there's no problems there, there's no bottleneck in the way we understand bottlenecks anyway. So again, it's very important to look for a good case. It doesn't necessarily mean the Fractal Meshify is the best one, Meshify 3 rather, but there are others out there, and you may want a smaller case, so you also have to take into account motherboard then, and go with a motherboard that's smaller for a smaller case. You might need, I think it's like M80X motherboards, I believe, or an ITX motherboard for an ITX case. That's how you match it, really. And you also need to take into account for cooling the radiators, so there's often a way to outtake it or put it on the top of the case and pump out air. Sorry, what the hell's going on? Oh, Flemmy. And that's important. So yeah, and then after obviously the case stuff, there is the case where you have to put fans in it. So I've got a 4000D next to me. It's one of the older versions, but for some reason PC Specialist didn't provide 2 fans with it, which I wouldn't even suggest it really, but they should have, because the extra fans actually make a difference and make it a very viable case. But over the years it's been overheating so bad that even now I have a fan cooling it, like just an external fan, because I don't really have the faintest fucking clue of how to cool it with an extra few fans, and I don't want to mess with it really because it's already sort of busted. But yeah, as far as cases go, they can be reliable. You just need to be careful with what you get. Make sure it's got extra fans in it if it needs it. You don't need top fans if you're having an air cooler. That pretty much stops it from cooling. You also need to take into account the exhaust and intake positions. I believe, if I remember it correctly, I don't quite know this, I think it's logo is outtake. So the logo is the direction it will come out of. So that means the other side, the jargon on it, which I've seen, is the intake, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, anyway, last thing, and the second to last thing actually, to be fair, because I forgot about the other thing, but the power supply. The power supply is important. You only need an estimated wattage calculator to understand what to get, and it says on PC Part Picker, but it depends on what you get. Depending on the CPU, the cooler, and the video card, you will need a certain type of power supply, because it does increase in power with the stronger the things you get. My CPU here, for example, already draws about, I think, 200 or 250 watts, and the video card is roughly the same, I believe. I can't remember actually, but it all adds up in the end, and that's all the point. But you should leave some leeway for that. So where it says 696 watts, you should actually go with 750 for a power supply, and that's what I've chosen. And get a certified one, because that's efficiency. It's important to get efficiency on power supplies, because if they don't, then they kind of don't work. It's weird. But the highest rating doesn't mean it's better, it's just more reliable. I think that's the only case. And more efficient, obviously, as a result. So obviously keep those into account. And of course I've got an extra fan for the fractal mesh 5.3. That'll be going on the back, so it exhausts everything and takes air out if it's necessary. And then finally we get on to some of the other things. So monitor depends, obviously it depends on what you're doing. 1440p is a good middle ground, but obviously you need a better GPU for that, video card. Oh yeah, also memory you can pair well with a video card. You need 2 sticks of memory, about 16 gigabytes to 32, depends. But if you're a work sort of person, workload or office or something, you may need a bit more, it depends again. It's worth checking like the loads on current system if you do, because I notice when I use FL Studio for example, my memory's always fucking peaking. So you always need to keep track of that and make sure you've got enough capacity. So yeah, monitors is fine. There isn't really anything you can go wrong with them, even the cheap knockoff ones. The only thing is, like, if you need HDR for hot art, then you get HDR, and that's really it. Although display ports do sort of matter with video cards, so obviously keep track of them too as well. Because that does sort of matter. Some cards don't come with display ports, some do, and some come with less, some come with more. So it's worth taking into account. And then peripherals doesn't really matter, there's always things out there. Always things to be careful, find advice, find reviews. In my experience, optical mice always the best way to go. Keyboards, one that's not clicky preferably, that's my preference. But there isn't much to go wrong, just keep aware of like anti-ghosting if you're a gamer, because anti-ghosting is so fucking annoying. Every keyboard I've had with that, to be fair, it's only been like 1 or 2, it's just disastrous. You don't want anti-ghosting on a keyboard, you just want no ghosting. So yeah, and I don't think there's anything else actually. Actually, operating system. I also forgot about that. Operating system will vary. That's another thing in its own way. Because obviously Windows is the standard, and Windows is a bit shit at the moment. I don't think it will ever get better, to be fair. But there's always an option like the Linux, which I don't recommend. It depends on what you're doing. You could get away with Linux for certain things, but not everything. It does require some, like, I don't know what it's called, like cross-compatibility. Apparently there's this thing called Wine. I don't know, I don't use Linux, so I can't comment. But it's better for performance, better for privacy, and yeah, but it is a bit more challenging to use. So I say a bit more, it probably is challenging to use. So that's why I don't recommend it. And then finally we get onto like a bonus thing, and that's optical drives. It really depends. With optical drives, it depends on what you're using it for. If you're downloading music, you know, from the drive itself, the discs, I mean, then it would be useful. Because it's a good way to convert it to digital and put it on your devices. Yeah, that's just one of the ways you can do it. It's also high quality if you can obviously do it. But you can also play DVDs, and that can be fun. There's often uses for optical drives, and you can also get SD card readers, I think, built into them, or at least ones that have that in it. It's quite interesting. The world of optical drives and stuff is quite fascinating. It's such a lost art form though, especially in 2026 now. Yeah, all this though, it does lead to the issues, as I mentioned. So with my specific build, I've got so many things here warning the motherboard supports the processor, but it needs a BIOS update to BIOS version F19, which you can do by Q flashing, and Q flashing is another rabbit hole. What did I say earlier? Oh yeah, it's too inaccessible. All the shit is. And this is what scares people away from building something like this. And then you've got fan compatibility, checking is not supported, and this is only a note, but it's to do with the, I believe, the sort of room headway with things, like, I think it's RAM clearance actually, there's a disclaimer that says that. But I don't know what it means with like fan compatibility exactly. So to be fair, it could be about the exhaust fan. It could even be about the case fans. So I don't even know what that actually means. I could always double check that, but it's always worth asking in a forum, and I think I will with that. I'll share the build as well. Yeah. It also says on here as well as things that you can ignore, like you need a BIOS update for the RAM, and you might need a better power supply for the CPU, of an extra pin thing for it, but you don't often need that unless you're overclocking, and overclocking is another rabbit hole. As I said, all this PC stuff is just fucking insane. And there's also like liquid cooled PCs, and that's another thing. There's even mineral cooled PCs. It's so fucking insane. It's such a complex like area to be in, and people would pay good money for it, I think. But more often than not, people focus on the components, but there are so many little things as well that can really change things. Like I have, for example, a VRM heatsink on my current motherboard. Don't know how effective it is, hard to tell. Don't even really know what it does, to be fair. But this is all contributing to a lot of the problems I see around PC building, and it really does make for a complete clusterfuck, because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to do it. Well, what are we doing here? Yeah, it's just nuts, and I can see why people would be turned off right away from seeing part builders or whatever it is, and I can understand if people would want to get advice on this. In fact, free advice is actually not bad. If you are getting like a pre-built or a, what do you call it, custom build, it's always worth asking advice. That's how I designed this current system, and it's worked well for years, but it has had issues, cooling being one of them, and nobody seemed to point that out, so I'm a bit confused. Well, I suppose I just picked a case based on how sleeper mode it looks, and sleeper mode obviously is just when a case is less RGB than everything else, or at least, system is less RGB. And yeah, weird enough, I do that. Even though I'm a gamer, I do this. Shitted my pants. Again. So yeah. I don't know what else to add. I have to move on now because my voice is going and I need to do other things. Yeah. So hopefully that gave some insight into why it's so complicated. Anyway, let's move on. This is a topic, sure. I feel like it's worth discussing anyway, just what the nature of it and what it implies. I've been watching these shorts by a guy who will almost definitely appear in my Things of 2026. I can't remember the name of the channel now for some reason. But they make very nostalgic posts, to say the least. Sorry, it's a good fart, so it means I'm not shaming myself. I don't know how I have it. Though apparently I think it's a polyp that might be causing issues there as well, which doesn't help. Because obviously things will brush up against that, and yeah. Alright, speedrun polyp bullshit anyway. I wanted to talk about this video, sort of short video, and it's basically the comments saying something very interesting in response to this short, and the short was second grader going to 6th grade to ask for supplies, so I think it was like a teacher's instruction. It feels very, yeah, that used to happen. Definitely is good. But I think it brings up an interesting discussion when you look at the comments, because obviously back then it was kind of cooler to be in the higher grade and be viewed as just more model students and just cooler students as well. And admittedly we did have some of them actually. It's weird actually how we actually feel that stereotype even growing up, when we see kids like that. Then obviously when we grow up and become those kids, it is so weird. It certainly happens. But I think the comments sort of made a weird point, and one of them was about how children these days is very different, and yeah, it is different. But the way they described them felt very sort of insensitive or not really correct, because what I see it as is actually rather a broader issue of the types of generations we're in at the moment. So Gen Z are giving birth to Gen Alpha, and that's the way it works, supposedly. And the reason why you see kids like this, supposedly in grade 6, which if I'm not mistaken is probably like year 11. Hang on, I don't even know what grades are. Grades versus years. The conversion. Let's see. Oh yes, it is old. So yeah, grade 6 actually is 11 years old. So yeah, like the bigger class, and you always saw these grades as like the cooler kids as well. Because I was thinking of grade 11 versus, grade 7, grade 6 actually. And that was generally what I viewed it as being cool. But obviously in the lower end part of school, it's like grade 4 looking up to grade 6 or grade 5. Like, it depends. It depends on the grading system. I think it's very interesting because I don't think that everything is as it was back in the day. When I was in school around 2008, we started to have smartphones and iPads and stuff. They weren't a commonplace thing, but they were there, no doubt. And we used them. Although I didn't get to use an iPad, sadly, but some did, teachers mainly. And yeah. It was a thing of its time, a product of its time, and that's what I think a lot of this is. A lot of the attitudes as well seem to change over time too. In fact, whenever I actually interact with kids these days, often through other people, because obviously I don't have kids myself, don't think I ever want to, their attitudes and behaviours are very different to the ones that I obviously grew up with. And the actions they have, obviously Gen Z and the generation after. I can't remember what generation is which now. It's confusing. But yeah, that's like the thing there. That's what happens. And we change over time. And in my day, it's like watching Crazy Frog on YouTube in 2004 with a penis. Yes, for some reason that was a thing. And then later on, in secondary school, ages 11 to 16, we are watching stuff like, just YouTube stuff like PewDiePie. We had smartphones as well. Also watched like Speed of Sausage, which is a very dodgy animation channel. But my god, there's so many weird things, and even then there's a culture of students just, getting into sex and watching porn and stuff, and that was a thing. It's always been a thing, to be fair. Not many people realise it, but it's always been a thing. Before computers, before technology, it would have been phones and it would have been magazines as well. You just find and hide. So, yeah. It's just very weird. I find sometimes the attitude's very strange and doesn't often make sense. And that's why I think there's obviously an increase in teaching sex education as young as possible, so that children obviously don't get overwhelmed or confused about things. Yeah, it's very interesting, but again, the attitudes are just kind of there's not really a thing. If I'm being honest, I think it's a bit stupid when we look at young children and think, oh, they're baby shit, and that's the thing the comment was saying. Kids back in our day, Gen Z, were cool, and kids now, babies. It's such a horrible thing to fucking say, because it's not true. Again, it's different things, it's products, or the children rather are products of their time, as we were. As my father's generation was, as it's vice versa. Even grandparents' generations. Everyone's different. The point is, you can't be judging this as like grown-up versus baby children. Like, no such thing as grown-up children or baby children. Everyone's different. These days it's easier for children to actually go to school and enjoy it because they have the things that we didn't have during education. Admittedly, there is a trade-off of terrible students and arsehole kids. They do exist. Evil kids, rather. It's probably a better way to describe them. And they're more commonplace there. But you still had them back in the day. You even had evil teachers as well. Yeah, not just the creepy kind, the ones that actually used to hit you. And I've been physically handled before. It's not fun. And this was in like 2000s, 2004. So again, it's not that simple. People need to stop looking at this as, again, the younger generation is more stupid. They're not. You're severely underestimating them, and in fact I've seen more smarter younger people in Gen Alpha than I have Gen Z, my generation. That's testament to the stupidity that people have here and the beliefs they hold. Like, yes, I don't like a lot of the music that Gen Alpha listen to these days. I think a lot of it's shit, but I'm not going to hold that against them. It's their preference, not mine. And so it doesn't really matter what you think of it. Even be. We should be trying to influence change. We should be trying to inspire at least better music and better composition arrangements, whatever it is. And a similar thing with technology. We can only try and influence things, but at the end of the day, whatever is the product of its time now, it will be the product of its time in their adulthood, and then when their future generations, when they grow up and maybe have children themselves, less likely now obviously with climate change and catastrophe around the corner, they're going to have different things to focus on as well. We dreamed of flying cars back in, junior school, was it primary school, not junior school. That's what they call some of the schools though. Secondary school as well. We dreamed of waterproof phones and flying cars, and only one of them came true. Flying cars just about being a thing. I've seen a prototype of it only recently, but yeah, they're not a real thing at the moment. And even then, phones they're still becoming a thing, and they are waterproof. That's the thing. They are becoming a thing, so it's not even a bad thing. It's just a non-issue. Again, products of their time. And if you can only find things that you dislike about it personally, then it's not a good argument. And the best way to even talk to younger people is inspiring them to take on something like critical thinking and basically using newer skills and assets to better make the world a better place for themselves, for their children, and even for what will eventually be elderly Gen Z people. Yeah. And even then, most of the boomers will be gone. Thank fuck, to be fair. Obviously the ones that are very old. We'll see things change over time, attitudes change, and woke culture is more common in children now because there's a passing of information that's unlike any other we've known. Back then it was dial-up, then it was broadband, and then it's Wi-Fi. It's all evolving. That's the point. And then I don't know what comes off the mobile networks and satellite internet, but there's going to be something. I already know that. But again, everyone and everything around them will be a product of their time, and there's no avoiding it, to be honest. So as much as you want to hate music and stuff, and again these sort of appearances that you supposedly hold them to, it's nothing. It's just, it seems very fucking silly, if I'm being honest, to hold that attitude. I don't know what else to add, and that's why the vibes are so different these days. And again, people might say something stupid like, oh, they're overdiagnosed with autism, they're wearing noise-cancelling headphones and ear defenders. Motherfucker, it's always existed. Not the technology. Technology helps, but autism has always existed, and the coping hasn't. The way to cope with it has not existed. so it's always been an issue. So that's funny. Just like, it's so fucking mind-numbing. It's so painful to watch. And you know, you could be inspiring. You could be fucking trying to be a role model, lead by example. And instead, you got people doing this in the comments, calling younger people baby shit. That's not doing you any favours. For your own preferences, it's doing something against it. Fucking idiots. Seriously. Anyway, I better move on before I die of a heart attack. So yeah. I suppose another tech thing. I'm not obviously like a qualified expert, to be clear. But I do think it's important, and sorry if I run off randomly, there is a spider literally above me. I suppose the question that comes along with tech, and even gaming, is when do you need to upgrade your hardware? I think the answer to that is it depends, because I think there's different scenarios. And I'll go through a history of when I upgraded my hardware. Starting with my mother's i2 CPU and a really crappy AMD GPU on a system that was like a small tower desktop PC which overheated sometimes. You know, it's not great. For TF2 it was okay, it runs somewhat well. Don't know how I sunk like thousands of hours into games on that thing. Even say through the third, but I barely played that because it's too laggy. But that's sort of when you know you need to upgrade, or at least get something different, like a console. Because when you notice those frame dips, when you're like the lowest settings, that's when you know you have to just upgrade. And I think that's one of the biggest telling signs for a game, in my opinion. Because I think gamers have become obsessed with having max settings at all times, and especially ray tracing is something that I got hooked into admittedly. You don't need that a lot of the time, and you can suffice with medium settings on a lot of systems, as long as the VRAM is decent, because I think the VRAM should be at least baseline 8 to 16 gigabytes, and 8 is only a use case scenario. Usually about 1080p gaming, and obviously it depends on the resolution too, like if you forgot to mention that. So it's completely down to preference what people choose to do for exactly what they're gaming on, or with rather. So if they're playing AAA titles, obviously that requires a decent GPU, just for all purposes. So you avoid the stuttering in games and as much as possible, and just be able to play it efficiently. About crashes, about lag, and that's it, and not bother about the settings. And that's when I realised I needed to upgrade on my mum's system there. It's a very old computer. Very shit. It had Vista on it, by the way. That's how old it was. Yeah, it was a PC we bought even post, I think, Windows 7. I don't know what the fuck happened there. But somehow we ended up with that, and I think it was just because they were selling them on eBay. Because they happened to sell a lot of those sort of PCs on there. But obviously that ended up not being sufficient, and when I got my own room in college and stuff, it became a no-brainer to actually go and get a system for myself, and I think I was actually given one, which is good. But it was only like a GT 640 and an i5 quad-core something, I can't remember the actual name. It's a 4000 series, I believe. So almost like best of the best. But it wasn't amazing. It ran Minecraft though. It ran games. I think it even ran like Titanfall or something. And then I swear I got a GTX 680, but it didn't fit in the Dell computer, because this wasn't just a Dell computer. Forgot to mention that. And obviously Dell's quite a controversial company. As it stands, they're just kind of bad with PCs and stuff. But I eventually moved that into a bigger case and upgraded the power supply so I could put in a GTX 970. Became a palaver in itself, and you know, that system, and also it needed an upgrade because of the games. Like Titanfall was really demanding back then, so obviously that was like necessary. I think that was like a big thing. But yeah, that's again when you kind of know you need to upgrade when a new game that you're interested in is not playable. That's also kind of an indication that you need an upgrade. Obviously, only if it's not playable in the sense that you may need to just lower the settings. Like it can be fine on just lower settings. I think that's like the most important part of it. But yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing there, to be honest. So yeah, that GTX 970, that carried me up until 2020, and then I realised as the PC was going wrong, and also it had to change a motherboard because it shorted. I think I stopped to put in I forgot to put in the rubber standoffs, which is why that happened. But it's also too close to metal and carpet on a metal desk frame, which was a bit dodgy. I hated that desk, by the way, if anyone remembers that. Kept hitting in my legs, and it was just awful. So I bloody hated that thing. It's one of the worst things ever, I swear. So that ended up being a pain in itself, for sure. So yeah, like that wasn't fun at all. Just think a lot of these experiences, they are, and you learn from them. But yeah, the motherboard was changed, and then I got a better CPU, and now memory ran a bit faster, 1080p as well. So honestly, it was important. Back then, this is when quad cores were pretty much essential for gaming, and obviously now it's different. You can suffice on 6 to 8 cores, but 6 is on like the lower end. So yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Then after that, obviously, I realised my system was unable to run Genshin Impact, for example, and so I realised I needed to upgrade because it wasn't just sufficing anymore. It just wasn't usable, which really sucked because it should be, but no. Situation says no. That's what happens. So I ended up designing a PC, and I got some advice and stuff, and admittedly it's just been a good PC, but it's just not perfect. It didn't last the test of time because of obviously newer generations, but this was around the scalper crisis with the RTX 30 series. Anyone remember that throwback? Because nobody else had anything else better to do in COVID. Great. But yeah, literally this happened, and I ended up having to get a system a bit more than it's worth. And yeah, ended up on a Ryzen 5800X, 32GB of RAM, 3600 MHz, I think CR18 latency. This is DDR4 of course, and a B550 tough gaming motherboard. Also a crappy Corsair Hydro H100 CPU cooler, which doesn't work, don't get it. It's terrible actually, it doesn't cool it. And what else? 4000D case, and then obviously the video card ended up with a RTX 3070 after wanting a 3060 Ti. But no, 3070 does its job, to be honest, it's fine. But it works all the time. Also not bad. And this system is doing its job now. But you might be wondering why the hell am I thinking of upgrading it when it's not currently dead or dying like the other systems that just unable to run games, and that's a good question. But the issue is it's sort of broken. It does stop working. I've written this of what it does wrong, and it's not unusable, but it is stressful. It absolutely is stressful, and that's what seems to be bothering me at the moment. So the RAM isn't enough space, that's the first thing. Then the other issue is storage. The main storage is not enough space, so I have to get an upgrade in the worst possible time, sadly. And the other thing is, in terms of performance, the CPU is not also doing so great anymore. I don't exactly understand why, to be honest, it's kind of confusing. So the CPU, even though it's technically capable, is not capable anymore. That's just what I use for. Yeah, it's just very strange. And so I'm going to have to get a better CPU. But obviously I can't use the system because it seems to have power shortages and everything just seems to be turning off randomly every now and then. I had it turn off a few times a few weeks ago. And to be honest, the power outages don't help it, but I can't change that. Power outages are going to fucking happen. They're going to happen more, by the way, because people decided they want to contribute to environmental destruction by their food choices, by their lifestyle choices. Like, great. Yeah, only have yourselves to blame. And thanks for fucking my life up as well, I guess. Even though that wasn't my intention, I didn't want that. Tried to change it. But that aside, other things the system does, it gets stupidly warm. It doesn't have enough case fans. I'm not 100% sure how I could do that rather. So yeah, it's a bit confusing from that perspective too. And what else? I'm trying to think. No, I think that's about it. The video card is fine, technically speaking, but it's just jolted and it's not capable of the task today. In fact, I remember launching Doom Eternal when I got this, I think, and it just didn't have enough VRAM for some reason for the max settings. I was like, what? Why the fuck isn't this able to max it? I'm just confused. Like, why? And obviously that's like the new standard now, so it sucks. But all this is a reason it contributes, and even though I'm not AAA gaming on what I plan to get, which is a 9070 XT, might even just go lower, I'm not 100% sure at this point, but something that has 16 gigabytes of storage, I mean memory, gotta imagine that storage, good luck, but it just frustrates me, and considering doing 3D workloads in artwork, and so Blender might become an option for me to use Blender to make certain parts of my artwork, which would be great because I'm fed up of drawing cities and stuff, even though I have brushes that create them, but it's not optimal. So I just want to get that shit on the wraps. It annoys me as to fucking hell and back. But yeah, I think that this may be the best choice, in my opinion. Could be wrong. What else? I think that's it though, but again, upgrading, to really answer the question in as simple terms as possible, I think the only times you need to upgrade is probably when again you can't run things that you want to run. And again, I'm having that issue. I want to run a DAW so I can do music production, and it's barely running it at sufficient memory, let alone processing speed. So I need something stronger, so faster, and also a bit better memory and stuff. That's pretty much a given. And on top of that, I need to do other things. So videos and stuff. I want to do video editing. I need better memory and storage, and obviously the CPU as well. Perhaps video. I don't know how much video is a part of it. Obviously a video card, 3D rendering and gaming. Gaming being a big point. And even though I don't want to work at max settings, to be fair, I still think there's something to consider. I don't want max settings for games at this sort of price point. I don't care. I can suffice with what's currently out there for getting all the shit under wraps. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not asking for tons, I'm asking for bits. I think that's a really important point to make here. Because I really do need stuff like that. It does help me in my day-to-day life. I do find there's a benefit to, having better hardware. And I was going to go with full efficiency, to be honest, with some of this stuff, but I don't know for sure. Just think it's a whole clusterfuck in figuring out when to upgrade, and this is the worst time to upgrade. And obviously to test this at the moment, it's just unbearable. It feels so bad to be in the PC space at the moment, and especially in the mindset as well. It's almost bad being in the mindset. But to see everything so high in price and so shit, it's painful. Man, I just want this shit to go down in price, and I hope there is a system in the future where maybe we can get money back from said like places like, you know, builders or, you know, manufacturers. I think the manufacturers mainly is probably where the money's at, because, you know, SK Hynix, Samsung and Micron, you know, they're all fucking horrible. They fix these prices to the point where you can't succeed in any of this, so you're kind of stuck. We're kind of at a crossroads here. It's real shit, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, but I'm not sufficing for a fucking peace system, and nobody needs that. That's also how you help with the pricing. Literally, the pricing is just, it's only a thing to care about if you don't have the money. But then you should be looking at things like upgrading. So if my system, for example, was still surviving, and I could replace the CPU, which technically I can, I would do that. You know, it's only a 5800X, and, you know, it's been a 7900X, it's been, I'll say, 9700X and stuff, and there's work. But I can't upgrade it because I got the wrong motherboard. And again, that's sort of when you know you need to upgrade too. Changing an entire system to reach that sort of point is its own frustration and hassle. And again, that's also a time to upgrade. It's sort of when you have to do it too. Because that's what happens, that's when you need to do it. And I could be wrong, but that's the way I see it. So yeah. Don't know what else to add. Just felt talking about this, to be honest. Again, technology, I'm in the zone at the moment. I think my system's looking nice. Again, I might just go for a 9060 XT or just see what's out there. And to be honest, I want to see what like Intel art cards are like. Every Intel art card. Let me look at it. A card tested gaming blender. So yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Whoa, would you look at that time? I don't know if you can actually see the time. It's getting late, but main point. Made enough topics here, it seems, so I shall have to say adieu. I don't know. Shit. What does adieu stand for? Who cares? Bye.